Welcome, everybody, to another session of Office Hours by Alternative Payments. Today, I'm joined by Lewis from Moovila. Lewis, how you doing, sir?
I'm great. Steve, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Uh, so one of the things I like to do when we get started is just let people know a little bit about ourselves. We'll
Sure.
be able to talk about Moovilla later on, but let's talk about us. Why don't you tell people about who you are, your
Sure.
background a little bit,
Sure.
you know, long walks on the beach, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. I do enjoy those. So I've got a little bit of a interesting background, and I do still feel a little bit like a fraud in the MSP space. So I'll just call that out early, and then you'll
No.
hear why. So my background is a little bit all over the place, but it'll make sense. I'll end there, and I'll try not to be too long winded. So cut me off, Steve, if I go too far. But I
Don't worry.
worked I worked for a company that owned a number of different manufacturing sites, and so we had a number of large projects all over
Okay.
the place, installing new equipment, new construction, new product development, a whole bunch of different types of projects. And I was actually responsible for maintaining our customer relationships. And I did not wake up when I was a kid and say, I want to be a project manager when I grow up. I want to be a baseball player. But, that doesn't always work out for us. And so, because I manage our client relationships, they were like, oh, you should just manage these projects. I don't even know if we called them projects, if I'm being honest. We were just all over the place. And because I was communicating with the clients and they needed the updates on those projects that impacted them, I was the de facto project manager at Moovila. Here we call it the accidental project manager. And that's how most people get into project management. So, project manage large capex projects for multi-million dollar equipment installations, new product developments for some of the world's largest retailers, site build outs, site qualifications, nationally, internationally. So a whole bunch of different types of projects. I've
Mhm.
seen them go well. I've seen them go really, really poorly. And so made the move over to Moovila, pun ish intended, till about 3 years ago, as we started to focus more on the MSP space and learned about ConnectWise and Halo and Autotask and the PSAs and how they manage projects, and saw a really, really big need in the market. So my role here at Moovila has evolved a little bit over time, but I run our operations team now. So we manage all of our customer onboardings. We manage customer success, documentation, service. So we do onboard all of our customers. So managing some of those projects as well. And so, still learning the MSP space, still trying to figure out the right types of firewalls and switches and access points and all that good stuff. But taking experience from manufacturing space and large scale projects and trying to help MSPs and our partners implement some of those best practices, and whether it's with our tool or without our tool.
Lewis, the first thing you should do with a project is probably just dive into the work and hope for the best, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you don't have to like make a plan or anything, do you?
No, 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 no. No
Huh.
one needs plans.
I
That's
wonder.
why all the budgets for all the Olympic build outs go so well.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's kind of suss this out. I know the end goal is a project that's completed, the customer is happy, and you are paid, right? So a high level, how do we get there?
Yeah. So I think if I'm going to go even more basic, before you get into that portion of things, is defining a project. And it's just that. It's just defining a project, period. End
Yeah.
of stop. I'm not gonna give you a definition of what a project is. everybody looks at it a little bit differently, but I see a lot of times that people get into these sticky situations, if you will, because kind of to your earlier point, Steve, you're there. You like to do these things. You like to solve the hard technical problems, and they get thrown at you, and you start working on them. And that's what MSPs do, right? And that's why the word partner is thrown around so much. But I see a lot of times where people are like, that's kind of a project. That's kind of not a project. There's got to be some clear definition of an opportunity, a conversation, whatever kicks that off, where somebody at the organization reviews that, looks at that, and says, Nope, hold on. This is not part of your agreement. This is outside of the scope of what that agreement is." And I know I'm already
Yeah.
using the word scope there, but starting with the definition, right? And be like, this is a project. It has multiple resources. It takes a longer duration. It's going to have different components of it. I need to start planning this differently, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
I can't just to our earlier jokey point a minute ago. I can't just dive in, start doing it. I've got to look at this thing differently and handle it differently.
Absolutely. And whether you're doing a project for an existing client of yours, they're already on like we'll call it the all you can eat managed service contract, right? Or maybe there's just a break fix contract, and everything's kind of a project, right?
Yeah,
It really doesn't matter because even on that all you can eat contract, the master service agreement, whatever legal document you're using, you likely have defined what work is is covered, right?
sure.
So you're and that's what Lewis meant earlier by scope. If you don't know that, that's what he meant. So you've got the scope of work that's included with your MSA, and then if what the customer wants done falls outside of that, that should be a project. I think we all hopefully know that. If not, I'm sure we can talk more about that either at the end or offline, and we'd be happy to continue that conversation. So, when a customer asks you, "Hey, let's do this thing. Let's do this thing that is a project," you need to let them know, "Hey, we can do that. That is a project that's outside of the scope of what's covered on your MSA." Uh, blah blah blah. We skip over the sales portion and we get to they agreed. Now you need to just start working and hope for the best.
Yeah. No,
No.
hopefully there was a little bit more over that sales process too, to define what the work was and what the work that needed to be done. And
Yeah.
just like we're talking about the scope in the MSA, the project has a scope as well too,
Uh-huh.
right? And so, hey, you got a new warehouse and you need a whole new network within that warehouse, right? We're going to install X, Y, and Z, and then it's going to cost this many dollars, right? And you know, everybody calls that scoping activity something different. Some people call it scoping, solutions, engineer, pre-sales, whatever it is. You're looking at the work that needs to be done and you're defining that. And you're using that definition of work to sell that to your client and so that they have clear expectations. And then you're also using that to give to your operations team, or it could even be the kind of the same person, depending on your size, right? You're giving that
Uh-huh.
to that operations team that's going to execute that work. And so before we just dive in, start doing the work, hopefully some of that initial planning has been done throughout that sales process.
That makes sense, I suppose. But man, Lewis, that sounds like a lot of extra work when I could just
Mhm.
dive in.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It is all about, we like to call it the burden of administration versus the level of detail that you
Yeah.
need. There definitely is a balance in
Mhm.
that. And again, a little bit of an imposter, and I do get to live in a pretend fantasy world and talk about you should do these things this way. And I know a lot of the MSPs are, you're in the trenches, right? I mean, you're having these
Uh-huh.
conversations, things are moving fast. And there is a little bit of like, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to go line by line and I'm going to figure out exactly how many hours for this and what work role or what resource type or however you define those things versus, hey, it's firewall. We've done it before. We know it's going to be this many hours. Let me just push it through. Right. And there's always that balance. But as part of that scope, you've got to define how much needs to go into that. Because if you don't, if you just dive in, you're going to be in over your head before you know it. Right.
That
And
doesn't sound great.
no, no, it's not great, and it's not an enjoyable experience for anybody, really.
Hmm. Now, I don't know that you would necessarily simply be in over your head, right? Um, for example, it could be that you already have done this type of
Mhm.
maybe it's an Exchange server on site to a
Okay.
Microsoft 365 or Google Drive or what, or not Google Drive,
Whatever.
Google Workspace.
Azure or whatever.
One of those that you've just done dozens of times. You
Yep.
know how to do it. You can do the work asleep, right? So yeah, could it be something like that? Absolutely. It absolutely could. But um what happens when the client hits you with, "Oh, hey, can you do this too?"
Mhm. It's part of it.
So if you didn't actually provide a scope of work to the client of what's included, how can you say, "No, that's not included"?
But the not fun conversation.
It's probably not, no.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, very, very similarly, um, if you haven't like reviewed the network,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether it's a client you've been working with for years or not, you still got to look at, all right, here's all the mailboxes, here's how many gigs each mailbox is, how long is it going to take me to
Mhm.
move all of these emails and contacts, calendars, etc., from
Mhm.
the online Exchange server to the 365 server. You got to look and see, all right, what's this client's upload speed? There's a lot of silly little things, like Lewis said, the administrative project scoping stuff, regardless of if you call it scoping or not, that
Mhm.
all of that stuff um needs figured out, and you don't want to do it. You don't want to figure it out when you've already started doing the work, because that's probably not the best time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's part of to your point, Steve, it's repeatable work. Like, hey, we migrate servers all day, every day, right?
Hmm.
Use that to your advantage. Because you do it all day, every day, you've probably seen everything under the sun that can go wrong, right? And
Yeah.
so that whatever document or thing you call as that scope of that delivery, you've got a checklist there, or risks or assumptions or issues or decisions, a raid log, right? Any of those whatever that terminology is that you use to say, hey, how many users is it, right? Are we moving mailboxes? How many users? Okay, I know each user on average is going to take this long, blah, 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 right? Hey, double check, ask the customer, are there any applications on the server we need to be moving, right? Or have they just told us about mailboxes kind of deal? So that repeatable work, absolutely, right? And that's you just continue to fine tune that and not to
Hmm.
jump too far into the process here, but at the end of each project there needs to be a lessons learned on that so that you can keep that feedback loop, right, going into whatever that scope is.
That is really good. The what did we learn thing, I think, is probably the hardest one for MSPs to like slow down and think about, right? Because more often than not, they are, I don't know, busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I would say, yeah, slowing down and thinking like, all right, what went well? What could we do better? um what was our profitability? Like, you got to look at all the numbers, like how many hours did we think we would take and how many hours did we actually take?
Yeah. I, you raise a great point there. And like we were talking about earlier with the definition of what a project is, define what margin means to your
Mhm.
organization and who manages that, who sees that. I mean, so many times I'll ask and be like to project managers, like, well, do you have visibility into what your margin is? on the project. And more often than not, people are just budgeting or looking at things based on a quantity of hours rather than dollars or percentages, which is fine, right? If you have those different levels within the organization, but you gotta give people a target. You gotta
Hmm.
define something. So it's gonna be, hey, we're gonna do this project for this many hours, and you need to be plus or minus 2% on that or whatever it is. Right now, you could argue the minus side a little bit bigger. Maybe it's, depends if it's a fixed fee or time and material, not to get into all the semantics there. But, if it's a T&M, maybe it is plus or minus 5%, just because that's where you don't have as much pushback on the clients as you go over or you're too far under kind of deal. Right. And if you're too far under on a T&M project, you're going, oh, they agreed to that many. I could have sold it for that much more and made that much more margin. So just defining what that target is. And also, too, really, really important, make sure that's a clear target between the whoever's doing the selling and whoever's doing the executing and the delivery. Whether, like I said, sometimes it's the same people, but if you don't have that, there's always going to be conflict between those two departments. And that's not even MSP specific. That's across any type of company. There's always conflict between sales and operations, right? I mean, sales saying, "Oh, operations say we can't do this," and operations saying, "Oh, I can't believe sales sold it like this." But the more you align those groups and say, "Hey, we're all here on the same team. We're all trying to hit this margin on this project," right? It just builds that culture too, and also just improves your chances of success.
Yeah. Now, I don't have it up yet, but in a minute, I'm going to put up this. It's actually a PDF, and you guys, everyone who registered for this webinar, you're going to get this tomorrow in the follow-up email. So I don't want you guys to like freak out and think you have to like take screenshots or something, okay? So I'm gonna put this up because I think this is good stuff. So scope creep. This 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 idea of scope creep. I
Yeah.
I kind of hinted at it earlier when a client asks you, "Hey, can you also do this?" Like, "Oh, hey, can you make sure I don't know. I can't even think of like a scope creep from the perspective of a Microsoft 365 thing because I would always make sure like, set up, migrate all of their contacts and the auto completes and make sure everyone knows how to use the new Outlook and like all that stuff, right? And that pretty much covered most of the scope creep that could have come up on a project like that.
Sure.
Um, but for if I think about on like the creative side of things, that's where scope creep gets real.
Yeah.
When you have like you're doing web design, for example. Oh, I really wanted a cornflower blue instead of Cornelius blue or what like, how many changes do you allow before it becomes an extra sub project that's billable, that kind of stuff. So that's what I mean by scope creep. Or oh hey, I don't actually have Outlook on my computer. I want to use shortwave or some other application instead. Well, now we're talking about, all right, now I got to learn this new application and whatever else because I
Yeah.
got to make the CEO happy, right?
Sure.
So that's when scope creep can kind of, well, creep in, pun
Mhm.
intended. So you guys have put together this scope creep response kit.
Mhm.
So that way people can stop losing, lose margin. No, people can stop losing margin to just one more thing. Um, so I want to just kind of go through this. We just talked about what is scope creep.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
so
I think what's important to, at least for me, things like words like scope creep and words like change management
yeah, they're boring.
feel overwhelming,
Well,
right?
not only that, but they just feel boring. Like
Well,
nobody wants to do that. It's not exciting work.
yeah, yeah, they do feel boring. They do. There are some people out there though. I was talking to somebody yesterday. She's like, "I love change management." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how can I clone you? And
Huh?
but they feel things like this. They feel like a lot. They feel overwhelming, and it feels like, man, I just don't know where to start with this. And why we threw this together was just try to help people walk through it really simply. Like just define it, put a process together for it, and handle it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to have some crazy tool that does it, and you don't have to automate it. It is simply, hey, what do these things mean? What do we need to do as we walk along the way and execute this? And also too, scope creep conversations are, like I keep saying, not fun, right? Missing delivery dates, missing margin, whether that's internal, external stakeholders, they're not fun. So just helping you with some of that context there as well too, to have those conversations.
Hmm. But a great way to, I wouldn't say eliminate scope creep, but if the more detailed your statement of work is, so that way it defines what is included, and if it's got the little T's and C's that say anything not above is
Sure.
not included. I'm not saying just tell people no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But but you and it's okay for you to, like, have an exception here and
Sure.
there, like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll help you figure out this different version of email software for the CEO. I wanna make my client happy." When it becomes repetitive, that's when you need to say, "Okay, you guys keep hitting me with more and more, um, look, I want to do all this stuff for you. I can do all this stuff for you, but this is all well outside the scope of work. And we need to adjust the scope so that way it's included, which means it will adjust the price.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to do it. Let's just make sure, because if I'm not profitable, then I go out of business. Then I can't
Yeah.
help you when you're ready for your next project, right? So let's make this a win-win for everyone. Something
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah. Or all these things tie together, right? You've set your target margin, and you look at that, try to hit it as best you can, project by project basis, right? But you look at it on a monthly basis, and you as a team look at it, and you're like, hey, well, we ran those other two projects, right, really super efficiently. We made extra margin on those. Do we go
Mhm.
ahead and do this extra work for the client on this one, knowing we're going to take a little bit of less margin, but to help make them happy? And then, but don't just do it and not tell them, right? That's a key advantage to build a relationship, to say, hey client, I just want to review the scope with you. Doing this other work, not part of what we agreed to, but we're going to go ahead and knock this out for you. I'm not going to increase the price on you. We're right in the middle of the project. We're going to knock it out, get it done, right? Just build that goodwill, right?
Absolutely.
So it all ties together, right? You got to have a target margin and know against, and you got to be tracking that as well too, because it could be that, hey, we overscoped earlier in the project and we got a couple extra hours, right? Yep, I can knock this out within that window. I don't even need to bring it up to anybody. Just going to get it done.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, uh, something else that I think would be pretty cool to think about. Um, so maybe you do maybe they give you a few change requests or a few things that are outside of your scope.
Hmm.
One thing you could do is, what if you had, I'm going to call it milestones within your project.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not here to tell you how many milestones is the right number of milestones, because I think it will vary on the project. A really big, what do they call it? A big audacious project? Well, I don't know. Uh, I tried, it failed. But if you have like a big, crazy project where maybe you're taking a larger company, they've got 10, 15 servers, and we're going to virtualize everything. And we're going to put it all on like a VMware server, or we're going to host it all on Hyper-V, or maybe you're moving it all to the cloud. Like, that's a huge undertaking, right?
Yep.
That could easily be 20 milestones for all we know, depending on how involved, and how many you're able to do at once, and how long it takes, and so on and so forth, right? So the cool thing is, like, each milestone, you can say, you know what? I believe it's going to take me 25 hours in this milestone. Let's say it takes you 18. And then as you keep going through the milestones, maybe you were over by like an hour here or an hour there,
Mhm,
right? Well, now you've got extra time that you had budgeted and maybe the client paid for. So it would be great for you to just keep that as extra margin. But if they're asking you to do a couple more things and you've you've done this and you're like 15 hours under and the extra couple things are only going to take you an extra 2 hours, you're
mhm,
still way more profitable than you anticipated,
mhm.
and you know you've got budget to be able to do these things, make the client super happy that you went above and beyond what the scope of work was, and it's still a win-win for everybody.
Yep.
Am I wrong here?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
a yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm wrong.
No, 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 no. Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. That's funny. That's like my son. I'll
Damn.
ask him, "Hey, do you mind to go to do that?" And he's 6, right? And naturally, it
Yes, I
makes
will
more
do that.
sense to him to say no. It makes more sense to say no. I don't mind. So I'll say, "Do you mind to go do that?" And he goes, "No." But he means, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
it's funny. I'm saying yes, and you're like, "Yes, you do." Um, yeah.
I just like picking on people with grammar, like, I don't
Gosh,
mean anything
my
about it.
wife was an English teacher. I just get destroyed every day. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
So what are your thoughts on this whole milestone?
sure, sure. My thoughts on the milestone are yes,
Yeah?
absolutely. Milestones are a key part of project management. They're the milestones, they're objectives, they're deliverables, whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
However,
Uh-oh.
you've not planned your project, how do you define milestones? You know what I mean? So it
Fair.
it does all it does all start back with the plan and back with what we were talking about at the beginning. But absolutely, and those milestones, they can be, hey, it's just a feel good, check that box, share it with the client. We internally on our customer onboarding project plans use milestones or objectives to say, have we configured the integration? It feels great to check a box, right? Have you
Sure does.
have you imported a project? Check a
Mhm.
box. Super easy, simple ones too, right? So they can be used a number of ways. Now, in that big kahuna of a project you're talking about, Steve, milestones are super important because you have all these different big chunks. It's hard to manage all of this at one time. You need to look at it in bite size, right? Take the elephant one bite at a time. So you've got to have a plan to be able to do that. You use those to communicate to internal and external stakeholders, but then also you can use those potentially to talk about billing. Hey, when we get to this milestone, we're going to send you our first progress invoice. When we get to this milestone, we'll send you our next. For us, when we were purchasing large manufacturing equipment lines, it would be a deposit. We'd get an invoice at 50% of engineering, and I would need verification of all those different things and that parts are on order and frames have been built and all that sort of stuff. And then another invoice at shipping, and then another
Mhm.
invoice after qualification. So four really clear milestones. In your example, Steve, you talked about, doing 15 different servers or whatnot. Maybe it's you're billing them in chunks, right?
Mm.
5, and you're going to do an invoice for the first five, invoice for the second five, invoice for the third. And those tying those milestones and checking those boxes, that's really easy for people to understand. Oh, yeah, that work's done. I'm getting an invoice with that.
Perfect. Talking about invoices, do you guys in the chat, when you're doing projects, how do you guys invoice? Do you just do like, I don't know, 50% upfront, 50% upon completion? Do you do milestone billing? Do you just like do all the work and hope they pay you? Uh
50, 30, 20, 50 up front.
okay. And do you guys put terms on these, or like for example, the 50% up front, do you start the work before you get the 50%? Um the 50% upon completion, do you say net 30, or due upon receipt? And how long does it take you guys to get paid? I know, I'm nosy. Once materials ordered, not 30. That's pretty good. And then I see Brandy's got 50, 30, 20. So I assume that's 50 up front, 30 like maybe halfway through the project, and then 20 upon completion. Again, those milestones are could be flexible, right?
Mhm. Or that 50% in the middle, that would be a, you have to make sure that's defined, right? Is that based on quantity of hours? Is it based on through these couple phases? Uh,
Yeah. Ooh, this is a good one. Beth
mhm.
does time and materials progress bill monthly based on the actual hours entered, and then fixed fee progress bill monthly based on percent complete if over 5,000, otherwise just bill at completion. Okay. Well, I mean those are all reasonable methods, I think, from what I heard. The people who didn't respond, um, I'll just assume you just bill them at the end and they pay you within 60, 90 days, I guess. Um, Beth likes to minimize the number of invoices to the customer to try and reduce the number of invoice questions. That's fair. That's fair. Um, it is my opinion, and then you know what opinions are like. Um, belly buttons. It's my opinion that if you define the project scope and explain the milestone billing up front, before they sign the dotted line that says yes, let's move forward, there should be fewer, maybe zero questions about the invoices. Um, do you do you recommend like should the person who handles accounts payable be like notified that invoices are going to be coming and here's why? Like, how would you handle that, Lewis, or do you just let the customer deal with that?
Yeah, you know, I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out over the past 3, 4, 5 years. It just, you've got to be so clear
Uh,
on everything. You know, and you assume, yep, I put billing terms in there and the customer read it and they're not going to throw a fit when I send invoices at the beginning, right? And
why would
just
they?
right, we're talking about it, we know it comes up, right? That, like, when we deliver the scope, hey, it's going to cost this much, here's the billing terms, here's how we're going to invoice you, do you have any questions? And again, you're going to have those conversations and you're going to have people that don't pay attention, and you send the invoices and then they're like, why am I getting an invoice? And you're like, hey, remember our conversation? So you're always going to have that, but just, you've got to be super, super, super clear about it. And then, yeah, to your
Yeah.
point, trying to get in front of it, and that's definitely part of the project manager's job as well too, to manage the customer's expectations on that, saying, hey, in this, this status meeting this week, we finished the first two milestones. Just a reminder, accounting is going to be sending an invoice. If you want to give your team a heads up, I expect it to go out on Friday, right? As best as you can keep people informed and be super clear and tie those things together, or say, hey, everybody, reviewing this month, we finished 20% of the project. So your next invoice is going to be coming for that. Just, you've got to be so clear with people, especially when it comes to money, right? You,
Uh-huh.
you don't mess with people's money. You don't,
That's what I'm told.
when people that's what I'm told. That's what I've witnessed, and when you're asking for money, it's you got to be super clear.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I'll throw out there is, after you implement milestone billing, whether you do, what Lewis and I are talking about here, Dane said he has account reps give customers a heads up prior to invoices being sent. I think that's great.
Hmm.
Um, so after you implement milestone billing on your projects, you are going to have a lot more, payment events coming in. Maybe you have three per project instead of one check when everything wraps up.
Sure.
Now that's cool because you're getting paid more frequently, you're getting the money more quickly. But that's in theory because you're just talking about sending the invoices. Now now you have to collect on them all. More milestones means more invoices, which means more waiting, more chasing, more reconciling. That is where alternative payments can come in. um, what we do is we automate the entire accounts receivable process from invoice to bank deposit to reconciliation. You create the invoice in your PSA, it syncs over to QuickBooks and alternative payments, and we take it from there. We're going to email the invoice, we'll send reminders if it doesn't get paid fast enough. You've got full control over those reminder settings. And if you aren't really sure what those reminder settings should be, our team has some recommendations for you. If you want to optimize your cash flow, if you want to get paid as quickly as possible, that's what we're here for. When it's paid, we mark it paid, we create the deposit in QuickBooks, everything reconciles. So when your bank statement hits, you just hit match. So if you'd love to spend fewer hours on billing and get your money faster, so that way uh, you have the revenue, the money to be able to buy equipment for that next project you're starting, let us know if you're interested. I'm going to throw up a poll. All you have to do is say yes. I want to learn more, and we will be happy to give you a personalized demo of how our platform can work with your specific tools and your workflows. Worst case, you get one conversation, you decide it's not for you. Best case, you fix your cash flow. All right. Now, I'll leave that poll up for a moment. Lewis, I suspect yours would do a little bit better in a few minutes, but if you would like, we can do one for you now.
Sure. Commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What Moovila is. So
Yeah,
as you
let's
probably have gathered from here,
and
and
just and real quick, guys, we've got more content, so we're not like wrapping up, okay? So we've got more to talk about.
sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lewis.
No, no, no. All good. All good. And I know some of you in there. As you probably gathered, Moovila is a project management tool. So integrated with your PSAs, ConnectWise, Halo, Autotask, and Moovila is built around PMP and PMI best practices. Been around for 10 years, and as I alluded to at the beginning, newer 3 4 years in the MSP space. So the product has evolved a lot over that time period with functionality specific to MSPs and how MSPs work and manage projects. Our bread and butter, the core differentiator for us is what we call our critical path engine. So within our platform, you build your well structured project plan. Got some tools to help you build a well structured plan. But once that is built, we're always forecasting start and due dates for every piece of work within that project and then the forecast date on that overall project. So as we're talking here about getting paid and hitting milestones, being able to accurately forecast when those are going to hit and when you're going to be able to wrap up that project and collect that cash along the way.
Beautiful. So, same question. If you are interested in learning more about Moovila, I will launch a poll and Lewis will then work with you and get you a demo of their platform.
Yeah. Happy to talk to about any project process issues as well. Not not on the product side. So I love to have the conversations. These are the fun ones. Again, a lot of them, they feel daunting, right? Like it
Hmm.
just feels like a lot. It doesn't have to be, right? If you just break it down in the smaller parts, it's just process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we've talked about scope creep, scoping, milestone billing. That's all we have to do, right? Projects
That's it.
basically just run themselves at that
Oh,
point.
and the work, do the work, like what you're selling.
Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
gosh, that's the worst part.
Yeah, yeah. But
Ugh.
I think what's important as well to kind of just wrap a blanket around all of those is managing the work, managing the project, right? And I've said it a couple different ways, and every organization is going to be different based on size. But sometimes you have, sounds like Dane, you said you have reps give customer heads up. Sounds like reps probably do some of that project management functionality in there. Um, you know, engineers are doing some of the PM work themselves sometimes. as well too. So everybody, everybody does it a little bit differently, but all of these things we're talking about, that's somebody has to manage those, keep an eye on those, make sure that things are progressing the way they need to be.
Very good. So project manager, I guess you should have one of those. And that shouldn't be the same guy doing the work.
That's a loaded question. That is a very loaded question because it depends on the size of the organization, quantity of projects. Um, so in every organization, it's different, right? If you have 5 people, owners doing a little bit of the PM work, engineers doing a little bit of the PM work, I think what is the most important thing as you think about that, somebody is doing that work, whether you have an official title for it or not. Somebody somewhere is doing that. You should also be scoping and charging and billing and capturing that time as
Yeah.
well too, right? Even
I didn't think about that. Yeah, you should. Yeah, the whoever's doing the project management work, that's still, admin time or back
Mhm,
end office work or however you want to call it. It's still work that's attached to a project. It's
mhm.
still labor hours.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hmm.
You're scoping like, yeah, we're gonna take us 20 minutes to do the work. Oh wait, we had an internal kickoff, we had a client kickoff. I had to build the plan. I then had to close the project out. I then had to keep emailing the customer for updates along the way. So everybody looks at it differently, right? Some people look at
Yeah.
it based on the actual they based on it looked on the actual hours, right? Which is definitely going to be the most accurate. Other people will blanket it and just say 10, 15, 18, 20% of the engineering time. We're then going to charge another that much for the admin time. Another interesting one that I don't think we necessarily want to go down the rabbit hole today is, do you charge for the time it took you to discover and scope the project as well too?
I mean, you should at least document it
You got to
so that
try.
way
You
you
should know it.
understand. Um, and who knows? Maybe you document it and you document so many of these projects and realize, scoping and all that. This ends up taking us, 16 hours or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like how many hours would it take you to scope a single project?
Me?
Yeah,
Depends on the project, right? If I'm thinking in my past life and I'm
yeah.
thinking on if I'm thinking about installing a new line, there's probably between meetings, traveling to go see equipment, um, you've got at least 40 hours. And
Oh
that, I
wow,
mean, that's a
okay.
big that's a big,
Yeah.
you're installing
But
an,
then at that point, there's also the travel and all the other expenses that go
Mhm.
along with that too.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
So,
yeah. I would say from what I've seen from MSPs in the space, you're doing a PC deployment, it's 30 minutes to scope that thing, right? You're doing a
mhm,
big server migration that's a little bit more custom and all these things. I've seen it go up to 20 hours
okay.
easily.
So so it might not be a bad idea to even if you're not charging for the scoping time, or if you just charge like a flat rate, or include that as a part, if you're just like, here's a flat rate for your project fee,
Mhm. Mm.
uh you know we won't charge you for overages, however you do it, right?
Yeah.
At least account for, even if it's just a few hundred for scoping. If you have no idea how long it's going to take you to scope, at least you included a few extra hours for it.
Yeah.
um
I've seen some people include it in their MSAs. So they know, hey, we're going to get extra project work, but we're going
mhm,
to have to scope, for every one project we win, we're scoping five. So we're going to assume each scoping 5 projects a month for a client, 10 hours, 50 hours. We're going to put those 50 hours into the MSA, right? And you might not line item that out for the customer, but it's part of your overall amount there. It's real time, right? I mean, MSP, your cost of goods is your labor.
hmm, okay. Now, I like that. For every project we win, we're scoping 5. So we're going to include the 50 hours in your MSA. And I assume that's across what, a year or the 3 years?
It depends on the client, right? I mean,
I
and
guess it depends on the MSA, huh?
it depends on the MSA, it depends on the client, it depends on how long they've been a client, right? Because I've seen a lot of people where you get a new customer, you onboard them, and then you have a slew of projects to bring their infrastructure to where it needs to be for you to
Uh-huh.
be able to manage it. So it could be like, hey, we know early on we're going to have a whole lot more projects, and then that's going to drop off a little bit. So maybe you
Yeah.
use that to your advantage to sell like, hey, first year is going to be a little bit more expensive because we're building our relationship. We're going to have to do these things. You stick around for the first year, we reevaluate. We're going to give you a 5% reduction on your monthly recurring cost or something. I'm probably going to get shot for saying that because everyone's like, what? No, we need to keep that revenue amount the same and charge customers more. But uh, just think about it, right? Just
Yeah.
just 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 know those hours are out there, and just at least think about them and capture them in some way.
And not only that, but think about it like this, you want your clients to want you to be profitable, right? So if they know you're going to be doing a lot of extra work for them for the first 12 months, and you say, look, your first 12 months is going to be here, and then your next 12 months may be here.
Yeah.
Because and I don't even remember who suggested this now. But it was a guy and he was smart and I liked the idea. It was basically you look at your profitability and your utilization and everything. Like, are you too profitable on this client? Well, then you should let them know, hey, I see right now we're too profitable on your account. So we'd like to give you a break for the next however many months or years or whatever. Maybe this is something you evaluate quarterly or every 6 months,
Mhm.
and you adjust their price based on their utilization. Now it goes both ways though. If you're
Yeah.
overutilized, then you let them know, hey, we used too many hours. We were less profitable with you for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So we need to adjust your rate accordingly.
Yeah. Hey, Betty's putting in 20 tickets a day, and we're having to tra-
Stinking
you know
betting, man.
track all those down. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious too. You know, I haven't gone had that conversation too much with folks. I'd be interested to see how many people are having conversations like that on the reduction side. I think there's probably a lot of on the increase side. And then how
Yeah.
how do you handle those, right? Is it, hey, we've gained efficiencies, so we're able to reduce price, or,
Mhm.
because you've got to be careful, right? If someone's like, why am I paying these guys all this money and they don't really do anything for me? You know, you're doing stuff, but a lot of it's in the back end, and it's not in front of their face, and they don't see it. It'd be harder to keep them on as a client.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So those are really good points. Um, oh, used to utilize that method. If client project made a lot of money, I would give client a free month or two of service, depending on the project size, of
that's
course.
awesome.
That is pretty awesome. And to clarify, I wasn't even talking about just projects. I was even saying, some people utilize this for the MSA too. Maybe you have uh, X number of minutes or hours assigned to every user or device, and they're just a low maintenance customer where you've got everything just working, and people don't bug you because they're all, I don't know, capable.
Good old. Yeah,
Um, reliable? I don't know. So,
sure.
uh, yeah, if they don't bug you a whole lot and you're just like crazy profitable, you only want like 65% margin and somehow you've got 82% margin. Maybe you change the price on the MSA. Um, so I'm curious, what other questions do you guys have? Pop them into the chat because we're here for just a few more minutes, and I want to make sure that you guys have a really solid understanding of making sure that you are able to scope your projects correctly and that you're able to get paid on them correctly, all that good stuff. While we wait
It's
for that, Lewis,
Yeah, yeah.
tell us some
Um,
some big secrets or something.
the big secrets.
Yeah.
Oh,
You've
secret.
got it. You've got a couple customers here. You got any cool, like, stuff that they don't realize is in the roadmap?
No, I already talked to Beth about it this morning.
Wow. I think you have
Um,
more than one customer here.
yeah. Um, we do. We actually do. We have a big release coming up. Coming up
Okay.
next month. Just taking a step back and looking at some things. You're when you're in tools all day every day, and you're like, oh, that's always the way that we do it, right? And that's just the way it is. Is that's not always the best way. So we've done a lot of that work over the past month. So cleaning a lot of things up, adding additional dashboard types and filters, and making it easier to manage some schedules and whatnot. Um,
Nice.
so just trying to do a lot of that. Um, then we've got some other plans this year. We got to everybody's talking about AI still, and I think they're going to keep talking about it for a while, right? So trying to
Mhm.
look at some things, trying to layer, some of our deterministic technology and automation on top of the generative and the large language models, and that's what I'm seeing a lot of early this year is using those tools as kind of the summarization for all those that data feeding back
Yeah.
into them. So looking at some of that as well too. I think it'll be a good year. We're already almost done with April,
I
which is
know.
wild. But
I know.
what about you guys at alternative payments?
I think I'm allowed to say these. Fingers crossed. We've got accounts payable coming soon. And then we've got some big like analytics type stuff coming down the pipeline as well.
Sweet.
So those are the two that I am not afraid to talk about. And then, as we build that type of stuff, we released our API in Q4 last year,
Okay.
or maybe it was at the tail end of Q3. I'm fuzzy on exact dates, but we launched our API last year, which means, as we launch more and more features, we have more and more API endpoints. We want to keep as much feature parity between the two as possible because I know for us, uh, some people are actually building out their own like custom payment portal thing. So, we've got the customer portal and, you know, it's fantastic. It's responsive, it works, it's like 3 clicks and the client's done. But some people they want to integrate it somewhere. Like I know some people who have built out some API integrations between their WooCommerce website and Halo PSA.
Huh.
Um, so they were using Stripe on their WooCommerce website, and they were like, "Well, why would I use Stripe when I can use alternative payments? Now I don't have to pay Stripe's fees, the 2.9% or whatever, because with ours, they can still do the ACH. You can choose to pass the fees onto the customer for the credit cards, all that good stuff." So it has worked very well for those folks who have built out that kind of stuff. But if you don't want to deal with APIs, our platform is fully functional if you just use the
Sure.
platform itself.
Yeah. It is pretty awesome to watch everybody doing some pretty cool things, tying things in together and
Yeah.
MCPs, and it's yeah.
You guys building an MCP for your platform?
Yeah.
I suspect we'll have one soonish. I'm speculating at this point. I have no idea. I know we've got one internally that we use, but that also gives us access to like, client data, and we don't we don't want people to have that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that's the big thing too. You gotta be careful with all this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And manage it and yeah. Yeah. So
Well, you just ask ChatGPT, "Is this safe?" And if it says yes, I think you're good, right?
you gotta ask it different ways. Gotta ask it.
Oh. Oh, okay.
That's yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, you know.
I've
Look
been
at
doing some pretty awesome stuff. So we got Claude for the whole company, and I decided to start using Claude Code.
yeah.
And I'm not coding. Okay, like I'm just using it for my marketing and
Mhm,
writing and all that kind of stuff. But
mhm, mhm.
I've built out some pretty crazy like integration stuff where like Airtable, it has it has no like integration really with some of these other tools that I'm using,
Sure.
but I'm using Airtable and I'm integrating it with like a LinkedIn tool and my Google Drive and
Oh,
Google
that's awesome.
Docs and there's like 3 other tools that I'm integrating it with. The next thing I'm doing is I'm actually going to build like a dashboard in Claude to where I just open up the site and here's my dashboard. So, yeah, that's actually that's gonna be a cool one.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Just whenever you build that, just make sure to make that a skill and just pass it along if you don't mind.
I've got some skills I can share with you guys. I'm actually working on putting together an AI panel.
Okay.
I'm gonna get an MSP or 2, a vendor or 2, and I want us to talk about how are we, like, really using AI at
Actually
work.
using it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
This isn't like, "Oh, let's dream and talk about all the possibilities." Like, no, how are you
No, how are
actually
you
using it?
actually doing it? Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if any of you guys know of any vendors who are using AI really well, or if you know of any MSPs who have like blown your mind on AI, then please let me know. You can pop it in the chat, or if you want to shoot me an email, I'll actually put my email in the chat just in case anyone has questions about anything. Um, but yeah, guys, I want to make a killer panel. I really do. So, Lewis, we are at 1 o'clock, sir. So,
Perfect.
um, is there
Time flies.
any other stuff you wanted to go over?
I don't think so. I think we were able to cover a good amount of the life cycle of a project. And again, some of this stuff can feel overwhelming and a lot and to do, but just take it one bite at a time. And as long as you're thinking about these things and make little improvements here or there, you'll end up in the right spot, right? It's hard to do it all at once. So just think about, okay, scope it a little bit differently, start a little bit differently, close a little bit differently, build a little bit differently. Just keep working through and improving. That's all we can do. Get better every day.
And for those of you, maybe you're already doing project scoping, maybe you're not, it doesn't matter. Just take one thing that you heard from this, right? Take one thing, the one most exciting, low-hanging fruit, whatever, and make that one change for the next project.
Mhm.
Okay. By all means, watch the recording. I'm going to send it to you all tomorrow, along with the project scope creep. Uh, I've already forgotten the scope creep response kit.
Sounds good.
There it
Yep.
is. So yeah, I'll send that. I'll send the recording. And then if anyone wants a demo, like you heard something that changed your mind, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. I would be happy to chat with you or put you in touch with the right person to answer questions. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I do hope that you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you all at the next webinar. Take care,
Cool.
guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Steve.